Welcome to my shop. Do come in, old boy. And do wipe your feet, hey. As you can see, I've cleaned. I knew you were coming. No spitting because there's no sawdust on the floor. That's rule number 1. And if you need to clear your nose, open the door, aim away from my car and high. That's rule number 2. Now before we get started, all those of you with cock envy, tool envy, let's get one thing straight. We all started somewhere, and believe me, I started with some proper right shite tools before. So let's not get off on the wrong foot to start with, because it isn't about the tools. It helps, man. So let's get straight into it. Size. I'll call that 4.6 meters, 15 feet in old money. And roughly 5.7 meters, that's 18 feet in old money, I think. As for ceiling height, pretty fucking low, even for a leprechaun like me. I'm 5'9", so it doesn't give me much space to hang anything from the ceiling, really. Let's rewind a second, though. I look at my workshop kind of like a kitchen. Food comes in, needs to be prepped, made to size. All that effort is pretty much generated into just one space, which for me is pretty much the workbench, which is where I spend most of my time, with everything around me to hand. And that's the most important part for me in a workshop. The bandsaw, my favourite tool of the workshop. If you can, save up and get a decent one with a big motor. Don't bother with those benchtop ones. They haven't got the balls to cut hardwoods. Bobbin sander. Well, I like my work to have curves in it. I'm not a big fan of just square, straight and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like my women, but with a bit of curve. I don't actually own a disc sander. I can do that pretty well by hand with a palm sander. Onto my storage system, I use sustainers, and you can get them whatever make brand you like. Really handy for keeping your tools organised. They stack and lock together. Double handy. But drawer slides like that as well. Took a lot of work to do, but drawers, an absolute must in the workshop, whatever they consist of, if they're sustainers or whatever. So anyone getting overexcited about all these boxes are full with lovely festal tools, they're not all. It's one of the most important parts of a workshop, I think, is drawers. Cupboards, you stick stuff in and you forget it's all the way back, and you buy more and you probably spend more. With drawers as well, your tools are away, put away, you don't have to dust them like they would if you have them on shelves. That's so much more easier to get to. I mean, much better idea. My MFT style worktop bench stroke outfeed table, side feed table, so much wasted space under these things, so I keep a lot of templates there. Table legs, chair legs, that sort of thing. I don't use it for sawing with my track saw, to be honest with you. I much prefer just ripping stuff down quickly with the track saw and then put it on through the table saw. That way you're guaranteed that you're going to be millimetre perfect with every cut. Track saw, you can't guarantee you're going to get everything perfectly square. So if you're making cabinets, a track saw sucks. A table saw will do you much more favours, but a track saw is good for breaking down sheet goods, because you ain't going to get that through a table saw accurately, like 8 by 4 feet. Personally, I really like the handle on the K-Pax. Whether you're choking your chicken or sawing a dovetail, what works best is your hand being in kind of your fist is in portrait, not landscape, like the DeWalt saw. And I find that makes quite a difference when it comes to cutting mitres and the likes, because how you pull the saw down. Kind of like when you're in the gym, if you're putting down with your palms of your hands facing to the floor, it's not quite as controlled as it is with your fists in portrait. So these are all the tools behind me, behind the vise. Sanders all at the top, because they get used the most often. I can't use carb scrapers much, because I have carb on both hands, and boy does that hurt. As much as I prefer it, but then again, some finishes, that's like, you know, sanding to 2000 grit, that finish isn't going to bond with the wood, so it's a waste of time anyway. Just looks nice though. So yeah, I've got three sanders, one finish sander, one 90mm, one 125, and I've also got a Makita belt sander, which I'm dying to find someone to start racing belt sanders with. Generally, as the drawers go down, it's just what I use less of. You don't bend down too much, do you really? Anyway, it's not really about the tools. I'm getting sidetracked. It's about how to work smarter and faster. I know this is the fucking Festool strapline, but it is so true. How you organise everything in a workshop makes you work much more efficiently. Albeit though, when you're hard at it, you seldom actually put those tools back in that box to then pull it out again in the next 5 minutes. So that whole counter above all those drawers gets cluttered very quickly. But I'm trying to do my best with that. I honestly don't know how people are working for money keep their workshops so pristinely clean. Even if I'm not busy, I find walking into a clean workshop slightly off-putting, and you want to keep it that way. Oh, it looks nice, nice and tidy. I don't want to mess it up. I find a messy workshop actually a bit more inspiring because you don't give a shit. And you're just going to go full send on whatever you want to do, and you achieve something you probably wouldn't do if you're being so finicky about how clean everything should be. That's my opinion anyway. Here's the reason I don't have a leg vise on my workbench, and I've just got it at the end vise. I don't need it. I've got this clamping system here, which I use dominoes to sit anything on, and those lever clamps to slap it down if I need to do any long work, like on the edge of anything. I'm sorted. I seldom have to do anything like that though. Got to remember though to pull out the tools you need before you set all this up though. I've caught myself out there a few times. This is probably the better way of me explaining this. The feeling of hand tools and what it does for me. It's inspiring, really. You open that cabinet and you want to learn more, and you want to be able to do more with those tools. Because that's where the finesse comes from. Those are prized possessions to me, and they deserve a nice place to live. So this drawer is pretty much like dovetail stuff. I've made these drawers so they're removable, so I can pretty much just throw other stuff in there and take it to the workbench. I think really this cabinet shouldn't have been called a tool cabinet, more so like a fine-tuning cabinet. Power tools are good, they get you there, but they don't finesse, they're not perfect. And hand tools, that's where the hand tools come in for me. The whole thing's made out of pine, stained with walnut stone, and a bit of wood burning effect for those cabinet doors and the drawer fronts, and a bit of paint to give that a nice effect. And back to the whole thing about the kitchen, again, I can still stand by that vise, and I've got everything to hand really. Clamps, saws, tracks, whatever. Sheet goods, I use insulation foam like this. I think that's what, 60mm, 50mm thick or whatever. For anyone that's wondering, the extractor that I use for these two saws, why is it up on the wall? It gives them a bit more length from the hose than when it's coming off the floor. It just works better with it up and above than with the hose coming down. With the vac on the floor, it's coming up and it's catching on everything. When you're trying to saw, it's a real pain in the fucking arse. Albeit it's probably not the healthiest for the extractor being so close to the wall, and that's where the filter is coming out. Saws there, one's a 55mm cut on the track, the other's 80mm cut on a track. Serves me pretty well, otherwise it goes on the bandsaw really. It's too thick. So my workbench, let's call that the dining table. That's where the family comes and eats. That's where we swear at each other and complain. oh, get sent to her bedroom afterwards because it just isn't right. That kind of shit. Lots of swearing happens here, and this is where it all happens. I love this bench. It's good, solid, and it bloody well does not move. It takes two of us to shift that and pushing off the other wall. It's a big lump of weight, that's for sure. I didn't use a leg vise. The carpentry vise has served me well for many, many years, and I'll stick with that. Made from a little bit of oak and a lot of pine. I have made a build video of this if you want to watch it. Sharpening, this is my sharpening station really. It's just a removable, like Paul Sellis type thing. I've chiseled out some recesses to fit these plates. Mixture of diamond and water stones and a bit of MDF with some wax compound type stuff. I have a Tormek. I don't really like it for chisels. I don't like the fact that it puts a concave in my chisels. I don't think that's good or for strength, especially in hardwoods, but you know, that's just my opinion. I just use it for my kitchen knives now. Back to the bench, pretty much just keep odds and sods in there, gloves, rags, stains, you know, the usual stuff you keep close to hand really. So a little bit of filler there as well. Power grinder, I own an MX5, so there's a standard issued hairdryer there, a heat gun, and some crappy Katsu type grinding tool. Worst thing I've ever bought. Finish I use regularly. Outside of that, I keep other finishes elsewhere. Nothing really to show there. Tiny little vise I really need to mount somewhere. Oh, my dovetail alignment jig. Now, there's one thing working out the workbench height. Now, there's not one workbench height is going to suit you perfectly, because there's other jobs where having a slightly higher workbench is going to benefit you, like sawing, for instance. If you can have a bench at elbow height, then you're going to find your sawing is going to be a lot better if your bench is at sort of just above waist height, which you find is better for hand planing. Hence why I made this bench top workbench. I love it. My sawing has improved vastly. My sawing wasn't bad before. As far as I'm concerned, it's better to get dovetails off the saw than off a chisel, that's for damn sure. And this has made a massive difference. I love it. I have filmed me making this dovetail jig. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be really interested in it, to be honest with you. Let me know in the comments if you do want to see that build video. Get down straight boards from it. Let me know though. Now onto my table saw. Well, let's call it a Jobsite saw because that's what it is. It's a very good one. I would love a cabinet saw of sorts, but look at all that storage I'd lose if I had such a saw. And I've been getting away with it for years using that. So I'm not in a rush to go and get a cabinet type saw. You know, those big type American ones, great big wings on them. If I did more cabinet stuff, you know, like kitchens and stuff, then it would be an absolute must. But I don't. I try and stick to more bespoke furniture. Opposite the bench is my router table, pillar drill, shop vac, and thickness planer and planer. That's a 12-inch planer, and I'll tell you what, if I had to do this again, it'd be the first tool I buy is a thickness planer, thickness combo. That drill's a bit iffy. I've got to try and stop that from wobbling so much. Router table, I like it. It's a little bit on the small side, but I seldom find that I ever need a bigger router tabletop. Keep my router bits right next to it. And the sustainer again, another drawer. You know, you can just pick these things up and walk out the shop basically with your tools with you if you like, including the router table. Dust extraction. The router table has its own dust extractor. The saws have their own dust extractor, and the Mitre saw has its own dust extractor. And for the big chip makers and the table saw, HVLP. Great, but in the winter, those just suck out any warmth in that workshop. Straight outside, Tesla V. As far as air goes, I've got this little bugger, pretty good. Another tool I keep outside of the workshop so I don't have to listen to it, even though it's pretty quiet considering it's a belt driven one. I can switch on and off from inside the workshop. I mainly have this for spray finishing. Simply, I mean, you can see the size of it. You can spray a car with that, and I have done. I have one airline going straight into the workshop, no water trap. I have a second line which is used for spraying. Now this is kind of key. That yellow line you can see there, that's standard 5 or 10 meters long, up, across, and then back down to 2 water traps. And the idea being is by the time the air's flowed through that hose, the water would have started to peer into the line and then to get caught in those traps. So that's my little workshop. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's one lesson I hope you get from it is drawers are king. No matter how much they are fucking pain in the arse to make sure they're absolutely perfectly square. Do it.